Hello, my name is Ensign Andrea Leff, and I am currently a fourth-year medical student at the Uniformed Services University of the Health Sciences, as well as a future family medicine physician. I'm excited to present to you all the beginning stages of the clerkship curriculum development I have been working on for the past several months. Throughout our pre-clerkship time at USU, we have many opportunities to learn about the domains of health system sciences. However, our current clerkship curriculum does not capitalize on our exposure to these opportunities out on clinical rotations. These topics of physician development often get pushed to the side and unfortunately are dismissed as lesser parts of becoming a great physician. Retrospectively, looking at my time on clinical rotations, it became apparent that these aspects of healthcare are arguably the most important, if not to the physicians themselves, but to the patients. My presentation today will focus on the process I went through in creating student-derived objectives for each of the health system sciences domains, as well as transitioning the objectives into interactive sessions for the students. I will also provide student feedback received from our pilot sessions, what implications they have on the future application of this curriculum, as well as the future impact of the health system sciences domains and what they can have on the unique patient population I get to work with, the active duty military. If you will direct your attention to the left side of the poster highlighted by the blue box, I have laid out a flowchart of the curriculum development. It was done in two main parts. The first part was the development of the SMART objectives, and the second was the development of the interactive sessions. I have included and highlighted above some QR codes to help provide elaboration and examples of some of the main steps along the way. As the only student on the curriculum development team, I played a key role in utilizing my unique personal experience of having just completed my third-year clerkships to help maximize the success of this novel curriculum. The very first step in this process was the development of the SMART objectives. My faculty tasked me with accomplishing this task on my own. For me, the development of these objectives was as much of an opportunity to educate myself on becoming an educator as it was an opportunity to capitalize on creating a curriculum in which the student's best interest was in mind. It is easy as years go on and education changes to forget the realities of medical school. It seems every coming year puts yet another demand on us as students, and it becomes difficult to understand the purpose of yet another hour's worth of work, while also continuously being preached to about wellness and self-care. So my focus on deriving these objectives was to have the main inclusion criteria be the realistic application of the information learned for my fellow students out on rotations. I made 8 to 10 SMART objectives for each of the health system sciences domains, which were predetermined by my faculty advisor. With this and every other step of this process, I began by writing every idea I had down as I read through textbooks, articles, and other academic material. And with subsequent steps, I consolidated and prioritized these ideas into working objectives, which were eventually finalized into educational materials. The next step in this process was determining where in the core curriculum these domains would fit best. The top left QR code, highlighted on the screen by the yellow arrow, shows the finalized pairing of each core clerkship at USU with its counterpart health system science domain. The primary proposed pairings were influenced by my student perspective under faculty guidance. I took into consideration which rotations provided the best opportunities for the topics to be discussed by incorporating resources such as the Duke Medical Professionalism Project and supplementary academics that were already an established part of the current clerkship curriculum. The finalized pairings were ultimately adjusted based on the constraints of the pre-established clerkship curriculum and what various course directors were able to incorporate. Fortunately, the majority of the original pairings were preserved and presented above. Once the domains were paired with a core clerkship and student-derived objectives were completed, my faculty advisor and I narrowed it down to 4 to 6 SMART objectives per domain, and we began transitioning them into lesson plans. Lesson plans differed in the method of information dissemination, but all consisted of an educational PowerPoint meant for the faculty to use to help guide the sessions, as well as an interactive student handout to be done just prior to or during the session. The QR code in the bottom left, highlighted by the yellow arrow, is an example of the preliminary faculty PowerPoint materials used for one of the sessions, that on social norms. This particular session was structured to consist of several prompts in which students would act out in front of their peers. The brief scenarios would then be followed by faculty-led discussions about relative topics that focused on the objectives previously determined. The two QR codes located in the middle, highlighted by the yellow arrow, and the other labeled Social Norms Worksheet, are examples of the student handouts that they will be provided with prior to or during the sessions. These are designed to minimize the amount of pre-work necessary for the students to engage in meaningful discussion, while also encouraging them to still be active in learning. It also encouraged the students to bring their own experiences to the discussion, helping to further reinforce a lot of the topics that are mentioned and talked about in each session. If you'll now direct your attention to the top right portion of the poster, I'll go into some discussion about the mini pilot sessions that were held, as well as some student feedback that was received. Back in mid-December, we were able to pilot several of the sessions in a condensed form with the returning third-year students who had just completed the entirety of their core clerkship curriculum. These sessions were done during a dedicated academic week, which also consisted of MBME shelf exams for the students for their previous clinical rotations. But it did not consist of any actual clinical duties at the time. The collection of student feedback was limited due to the close proximity of the pilot sessions to the submission deadline for this poster, but preliminary results are shown. The QR code highlighted by the yellow arrow in the bottom left of the poster shows the finalized faculty handout used during the mini pilot sessions. The one specific shown to you is that on social norms. You'll notice that it is slightly different from the initial full session draft that was shown in the previous QR code, but this was due to time constraints of the pilot sessions and is not going to be the standard faculty handout for future sessions. One of the biggest areas identified in the student feedback was the variation in student experiences while on clerkships. Some students were met with passionate residents who taught them aspects of health system sciences unprompted throughout their rotations, and these students found the sessions to be redundant and somewhat surface level, whereas other students did not have any interaction with these domains on rotations, but felt that having these sessions weeks after the rotation felt distanced, and they noted that they had a hard time remembering and relating to experiences on clerkship. All of this, as well as the added stress of doing these sessions during finals week, leaves me and my faculty with many opportunities to improve the execution of this curriculum. For future sessions, the hope is that by hosting them during clinical rotations with the upcoming third-year class next year, we will be able to better standardize student experiences and make the information seem more applicable and easier to connect with, as well as being less of a time burden or added stressor during finals week. The last section I would like to draw your attention to before wrapping up my discussion would be the importance of this curriculum and its downstream potential, specifically in the unique population of patients I have the privilege of providing care to, active duty military members and their dependents. One of the reasons that USU is working so diligently to establish a more effective longitudinal health system science curriculum is that the active duty military population has a larger proportion of minorities than that of the U.S. population as a whole. It has been proven many times over that minorities are more susceptible to the negative effects of a physician not well versed in the health system sciences for reasons such as ignorance towards social determinants of health, propagation of wrongful social norms, or unrecognized inequities of healthcare. By beginning to educate future military providers on the importance of these domains early on in their medical career, we can help shift the medical culture to one that is more inclusive and conducive to a medically ready military force. But the usefulness of this curriculum is not restricted to only that of military medicine. Its infrastructure provides baseline knowledge that has the potential to be adapted and implemented in many other unique patient demographics across the country. Please see the bottom right portion of my poster for resources used and my disclaimer. Thank you so much for listening, and please feel free to reach out with any questions that were inspired by my presentation.